You're watching NASA TV.
Outside of Moscow in the town of Korolyov, where Russian flight controllers are in the midst of preparations for Russian Spacewalk number 60 today, an excursion outside of the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station by Expedition 69 Commander Sergei Prokopyev and flight engineer Dmitry Petelin. We'll get into the specifics of the spacewalk momentarily. Prokopyev and Petelin will be conducting the 6th spacewalk together during their time on orbit that began last September with their launch along with Frank Rubio on a Soyuz spacecraft from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Today's spacewalk that is scheduled to begin less than 30 minutes from now should be about a 6-hour, 45-minute excursion for Prokopyev and Petelin with two very specific tasks. The first will be the installation of 3 micrometeoroid debris shields on the Rassvet module, which is on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Those debris shields will cover areas previously occupied by an airlock that was transferred to the Naoka multipurpose laboratory module and a radiator that launched on Rassvet that was also transferred to Naoka in a previous spacewalk by Prokopyev and Petelin. 2 of these debris shields will cover the area previously occupied by the airlock. The 3rd debris shield will cover the area previously occupied by the radiator. The other task will be a rather extensive test of the sturdiness of the European Robotic Arm that will be operated from inside the Naoka module in a workstation by the other cosmonaut on board, Roscosmos cosmonaut Andrei Fedyaev. He will be operating the European Robotic Arm, which is affixed to Naoka, to first maneuver it over to the multipurpose laboratory module, where a portable workstation will be attached to an adapter at the end of the arm. And then Prokopyev will move into a foot restraint called the Yakor foot restraint at the end of the arm, and he will be moved very slowly and very steadily, about 30 feet or so, back and forth at the end of the arm, like a telephone repairman at the end of a cherry picker, to test the flexibility and sturdiness of a heavy weight at the end of the European Robotic Arm.
Russian Spacewalk 60 will be conducted by Sergei Prokopyev, EV-1 in the red stripes, and Dmitry Petelin, EV-2 in the blue stripes. To start the spacewalk, crew will egress the Poisk airlock with 2 micrometeoroid debris, or MMOD, shield bundles, with each crew securing a bundle to themselves. After stowing the bundles, they'll turn on the helmet video and lights, then begin translation to Strela 2, a telescopic pole that can be used as a crane to move crew and equipment around. Once they arrive at the Zarya module, the crew will continue nadir onto the Rassvet module until they reach the first MMOD shield install worksite. Crew will work together to install 2 shields. They'll then translate further nadir where the last shield will be installed. From there, Sergei and Dmitry will translate to Rassvet's aft face, where they'll arrive at the portable workstation. The portable workstation is removed from Rassvet and installed onto the European Robotic Arm, or ERA. Once the workstation is installed, ERA will maneuver over to the Poisk module. Sergei and Dmitry will retrieve a few launch restraints and begin translation back to the Poisk module, stopping at the Strela 1 operator's post to temporarily stow the restraints. Sergei and Dmitry will then each retrieve a crew lock bag from the airlock and stow it on their suits. The crew will then translate nadir to the Nauka module via Strela 1 and meet up with Ira and the portable workstation. Sergei will ingress the workstation while Dmitry positions himself to take imagery of the robotic operations. Ira will perform a lengthy maneuver with Sergei and arrive back at the Nauka module ingress point. Sergei will egress the portable workstation and both him and Dmitry will translate back Zenith to the Poisk airlock. Crew will retrieve a protective shroud bundle from the airlock and translate to the Strela 1 operator's post. Sergei will ingress the operator's post foot restraint, and together the crew will jettison both the shroud bundle and the launch restraints that were stowed earlier in the spacewalk. Once the jettison is complete, the pair will translate back to the airlock and perform a tool inventory. After inspecting each other's suits, the crew will ingress and close the hatch, ending Russian Spacewalk 60.
On the International Space Station. Dmitry Petelin is outside of the Poisk airlock.
Yes, you have activated. Yes, I see it's illuminated.
You know, we are at the process of coming out of an orbital sunset into orbital daylight.
We're handing over.
So we'll get a much better view. As you can see at the bottom of your screen now, that is the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. You can make out barely the view of Petelin. He'll be joined by Sergei Prokopyev, who is in the process of installing a protective ring around the circumference of the hatchway to the Poisk airlock. Again, today's spacewalk began at 9:44 a.m. Central Time, 10:44 a.m. Eastern Time, a spacewalk that will see Prokopyev and Petelin attach a trio of debris shields on the Rosviet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station, where an airlock and a radiator previously resided. They are now attached to the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module, and they'll be affixing a workstation to an adapter at the end of the European Robotic Arm, and Prokopyev will then mount the end of the arm to be driven around by Andrei Fagayev, operating the arm from a workstation inside Nauka.
Out with the protective screen. You're going to also take out the protective covers kits.
This is Mission Control Houston, about 22 minutes into today's Russian spacewalk by Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin. You can see one of the two cosmonauts just behind the folded solar array on the Zarya module. The two cosmonauts soon to make their way to that Strela boom, that telescoping boom in the foreground of your view, as they will make their way from there down to the Rosviet module, carrying their tools and tethers with them, and two equipment bags that are containing the three debris shields that will be attached to the Rosviet module. Two of the debris shields in the area previously occupied by the airlock, an experiment airlock that was transferred during a previous spacewalk from Rosviet to the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module. A third debris shield to be attached to the area where a radiator with the International Space Station approaching the west coast of Mexico. Petelin and Prokopyev now making their way down the Strela boom to the Rosviet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station.
Ориентировал 2.7 напротив 2.7.
I oriented 2.7 to 2.7.
625.
So it's 2625. And that's what you got, right?
Держу. Попробуй чуть-чуть.
Hold it on your side. We'll hold it on the corner. Hold on a second. Inaudible. Guys, there can be LOS at this time coming up. Okay, then we need to route it. Okay, sounds good.
Давай,
827. It's tightened.
Ложка садится.
Inaudible.
One hour, 11 minutes into the spacewalk, a good view of Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin
Well,
at the work site on the Rassvet module, where they are beginning to work on the attachment of a third debris shield, this time in the area where a radiator resided before its transfer to the Naoka multipurpose laboratory module on a previous spacewalk.
Выключаю камеру.
All right, now I'm switching the camera off.
The two cosmonauts and their Expedition 69 crewmates flying 260 miles over the southern Indian Ocean, about to swing just beyond the southern coast of Australia and back. 1 hour, 47 minutes into the spacewalk, Prokopyev and Petelin outside of the International Space Station in the 267th spacewalk in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades, completing the attachment of a portable workstation to an adapter at the end of the European Robotic Arm Preparations underway for the initiation of the operation of the arm by cosmonaut Andrei Fedyaev from a workstation inside the Naoka multipurpose laboratory module. The two cosmonauts are running about 30 minutes ahead of their timeline, having already attached 3 debris shields to the Rassvet module, covering up locations where an experiment airlock and a radiator used to reside before they were transferred to Naoka on previous spacewalks.
And the second hook to the handrail on MRM. Copy. So the red and white can be used, right? Yes, it can be used. Very good. Oh, I can use the foot restraint. Dimitri, should I send it over to you? Yes, I think so. Security at first. Sergey, maybe you will add some slack to the retractable. I think so. That looks good. So allowing some slack.
Так, ну ты тогда тоже мне второй сюда подашь сразу. Ты имеешь в виду что?
You can hand the hook over to me here on the other side.
Мы не на тебя, думаешь? Да, на меня.
So not pulling towards me, right? No.
Может быть, его застраховать за опору, за эту опору до шаттла, которая...
Maybe you can use
мой, который с моей
the
стороны?
bracket that is the one for the shuttle on your side.
Давай.
All right.
Да, тут максимальная слабина нужна.
So this will be the maximum slack on the tether.
The portable workstation that will be attached to the adapter at the end of the European Robotic Arm that you see on the right side of your screen, it has been removed from its launch restraints. The two cosmonauts will await the arm to be moved just a bit further toward them so that they can attach the workstation to the adapter that's at the end of that end effector on one of the two ends of the European Robotic Arm. The two cosmonauts still running about 30 minutes ahead of the timeline at this point. The International Space Station flying over Santa Barbara at an altitude of 260 miles, moving from southwest and northeast, in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator.
Сергей, Дмитрий сейчас будем выполнять.
Сергей,
Я там дополнительно, когда будем выполнять.
Dmitry, we can start manual
Проверь ход движения, кстати.
transition right now. A little bit to the right.
30 сантиметров сначала вправо.
30 centimeters to the right first, and then we'll see if any adjustment is needed. Okay.
2 hours, 11 minutes into the spacewalk, you can see at the very upper right-hand corner of your screen the end of the European Robotic Arm, flanked by Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin. They are just moments away from the work that they need to do to install the portable workstation that they removed from the Rosviet module and are about to attach to an adapter at the end of the arm.
I see it.
Давай, я держу.
Let me put it back.
Вот теперь перестраховочка. Ага, давай.
Okay.
Сейчас и нормально.
Neat. But
This view of Sergei Prokopyev as he works with Dmitry Petelin to attach the portable workstation to an adapter at the end of the European Robotic Arm. You see the arm
we can rotate
on
it.
the upper left-hand corner of your screen. The two cosmonauts continuing to work. A few minutes ahead of the timeline, approaching the 2.5-hour mark into today's spacewalk.
Yellow. Do you have yellow on yellow? Yes, it is aligned.
После того, как мы совместили метки и установили замок, теперь мы
Because we installed the lock, you need to press on the lever and rotate, and it should rotate itself
Да, совмещены. Так.
into the closed position. Okay, you need to press it down.
Пошел. Я его случайно. Давай еще раз. Заново.
Okay.
обратно взводим.
Okay, we're going to move it up.
Подвернуть еще.
We need to tuck it in.
Так, да. Так. Вроде стал.
I think it's aligned.
Вращай.
We're going to press on the tab.
Вот, да, провернулся градусов на 30.
Well, it rotated about
А теперь давай
30 degrees.
через черные метки.
And then make sure that the black marks are aligned.
И с моей стороны, с твоей, да?
Рычажок отщелкнулся.
Did the handle release?
Рычажок, да, отщелкнул.
Yes. It did release.
Воздействовать на ПРМ.
So try to affect the PRM and check the lock
ПРМ у нас не снимается.
and verify the PRM is not removable.
Здесь все хорошо.
Okay, I think it is well seated. It's not removable. Well, we're about to, if we keep pulling it like that, we're going to be able to break ERA.
Принято. Можете сделать
Copy.
фотографирование замка?
Can you take photographs of the lock?
Конечно.
Of course.
Все.
And then when I'm releasing it, it's secured.
Сергей,
Sergey,
нам все-таки нужно будет сейчас довернуть ПРМ.
we should be able to turn a PRM.
Вот эта муфта, которая
So this particular
наблюдаешь ее?
color with the corners,
Да, да, да.
do you see it?
Не, с углами.
With the corners?
Вот это вот, да. Вот это, ага. Ну да. Ну она... Это штурвал, сколько она? Штурвал-то, видимо, по это... Ее поворачивает?
I think, is it the one?
Сомневаюсь, что она поворачивает.
I doubt it's going to be able to rotate. No, it's not going to be rotating. You need to pull it in the direction of the PRM adapter, and at that, PRM is going to be rotating.
Первого органами управления.
So it's going to be rotated, and it should be facing MRM1 with its control handles. Speaking simultaneously.
А ты можешь, наверное, вращать. А, наоборот, получается. Отталкиваю.
I'm jettisoning it.
And away it goes at the 6-hour mark, the bundled having been jettisoned by Prokopyev.
Отлично.
Excellent.
It will
We haven't
re-enter
had
the Earth's
orbital
atmosphere
night
within days,
jettisoning yet. At least I don't
and
remember.
will have no chance to recontact the International Space Station. So that constitutes the final task of today's spacewalk.
We got
And a short time from now, the cosmonauts will begin to retrieve all of their tools and tethers.
It doesn't take much time. Inaudible.
Хорошо, открываю РПХО.
Okay, I will open the ROPHO now. Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. We now have our full complement of statistics from today's spacewalk. This was the 267th spacewalk in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. The 10th spacewalk out of the International Space Station this year, and the 8th during Expedition 69. Those 8 spacewalks, 5 out of the Poisk module, 3 out of the Quest airlock, have now totaled 51 hours and 58 minutes of spacewalking time. This was the 8th spacewalk of Sergei Prokopiev's career. He now has totaled 55 hours, 15 minutes of spacewalking time, putting him 11th on the all-time list of spacewalkers. It was the 6th spacewalk for Dmitry Petelin. His total now 39 hours, 44 minutes. The 267 spacewalks in support of station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades have now totaled 1,696 hours and 26 minutes, which is the equivalent of 70 days, 16 hours, and 26 minutes of spacewalking time. So with that, we will bring to a close our coverage of today's spacewalk. Again, 6 hours and 35 minutes outside for Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin, wrapping up this excursion in which they attached 3 debris shields to the Rassvet module, attached a portable workstation to the end of the European Robotic Arm that Sergei Prokopyev rode like a telephone repairman at the end of a cherry picker, as Andrei Fedyaev operated the arm from inside the Naoka multipurpose laboratory module. Spacewalk concluding at 4:19 p.m. Central Time, 5:19 p.m. Eastern Time at 6 hours, 35 minutes. With the repress of the Poisk airlock continuing and the cosmonauts back inside, we'll wrap up our coverage for the day. Thanks for joining us throughout the day. This is Mission Control Houston.